This is the Financial Beat, helping you hit all the right notes in your financial plan. So sit back as we strike up the band. The Financial Beat with Logan Sadler starts now.
Welcome to the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, Vice President and Chief Investment Officer at Regary Financial. Wherever you are in Southern California today, you have made a good decision by deciding to listen to this show. Logan is here with advice on getting you to and through retirement. And once again, the number to call, as always, is 888-823-PLAN. That is 888-823-PLAN. We'll get back to that coming up just a few minutes here. We'll give you that number several times during the show today. My name is Ron Stutz. And Logan, how's it going, my man?
I tell you what, Ron, doing well and looking forward to a great show.
Yeah, we got a lot of interesting things to talk about today, so why don't we just jump right into it? Kind of a story that is really alarming to me. I can't imagine this happening to me. A woman in Georgia recently returned home from vacation to find that an old family house had been mistakenly torn down. A construction crew showed up at the wrong address in southwest Atlanta and demolished the currently unoccupied home. The company called You Call It, We Haul It hasn't yet said what they're going to do to atone for that mistake. But can you imagine how upset you would be if that happened to your old family house? Been in your family for years.
No, I couldn't even imagine, like, just generally like your house or your apartment or your townhome or whatever, right? Could you imagine just coming home and it's gone?
Yeah, man.
That is, man, talk about a big mistake. And like you said, I feel bad for the construction crew because I was there to show up and have a job to do. Unfortunately, showing up to the wrong address. That's a big bummer.
I can't imagine such a thing, but
No.
I suppose that kind of thing happens once in a while.
Yeah.
People don't pay attention; they get the wrong address or whatever. But let's talk.
That's like a doctor. That's like a doctor taking off the wrong foot or something, right? If they're going to have to amputate or something.
Oh
right?
my gosh, that's awful. Well, let's talk about something a little more pleasant, a little more in our lane that we usually talk about. Late bloomers. Maybe you're close to retirement and think you don't have nearly enough money saved. I know you talk to people like that all the time, Logan. But let's talk about some reasons that the news might not be as bad as you think. Logan might be able to give you some good news with your situation. On the topic of catch-up contributions, how can you help somebody feel a little better about where they are?
Yeah, there's a lot of people that will come into our office, or maybe a lot of you listen to the show right now where you're looking at your financial situation and maybe you got a lot of extra money now, or maybe you're just a little bit more committed to putting away money for retirement. Those catch-up contributions can really allow people to do exactly what they sound like, right? Sometimes the names actually match the description, and basically what that allows you to do is catch up, right? It allows you to put more money away for retirement. So you look at things like 401ks, your catch-up provision, you're able to put away an extra $7,500 per year on top of the on the added amount. So you can put away $22,500 into a regular 401k, as well as the catch-up. If you're over age 50, you could do an additional $7,500. So you look at that, that's a lot of extra money that you could be putting away. And you figure if you did that extra amount or as much as you could from age 50 to 60, that's going to be quite a bit of a difference probably in the outcome of the retirement plan. It really allows you to boost that retirement savings. And same with the IRAs. They have the same type of provision for those of you guys out there that are just contributing to traditional IRAs. You're able to put away the standard amount, which is if you're overage. If you're underage, 50, it'd be $6,500. But once you're over age 50, it's an additional $1,000 that you're eligible to add for that catch-up contribution. So you could put away a lot more money after those ages of 50, at the ages of 50 years old, and really allow you to start now compounding not only the interest and things like that in the account, but also the retirement savings. And that tends to be some of the best ways. I know we've talked about that quite a bit here on the show, Ron, is about, it's nice to make more money, but also if you're putting away more money as well, that's also just a double dose of recipes for success.
Another way you can kind of catch up, and this just kind of comes naturally, I guess, but, a lot of folks who are really quickly approaching retirement may still have their kids on the payroll, and I mean, they may still be paying for, their cell phone coverage or whatever the case may be, and hopefully that situation will change, and then you're going to have more money to put aside.
Yeah, well put. I mean, I think we talked about this maybe it was 2 or 3 shows ago where we did that segment about different ways that people kind of have kids later and things like that now, or maybe parents at home, and that's right in there, like you said, Ron. Having kids at home, maybe coming off the payroll. There's a lot of our clients where they're 50 years old or 55 or maybe even 60, and they have their children living at home. Or if they're not living at home, they're helping with a lot of the finances, and it's amazing. You get rid of a phone bill. Get rid of health insurance, you get rid of the car payments, right? You start adding all that up. It's like, man, I got an extra $1,000 a month, right? Or whatever the amount is. And I've seen that happen rather rapidly with some of our clients that were in that situation. All of a sudden, as you do get them off the payroll and you start to see, oh, you know what? $200 payment here, $400 there, $500 here. It's like, okay, perfect. I got an extra $1,000 or $2,000 a month that I could either now begin using for paying down debt or other things, or putting more towards your retirement savings.
Yeah, and right along those same lines there, you may be in a situation, I mean, presumably we all try to get all our debts paid off, particularly credit card debt and things like that, as we approach retirement. But you may have some of those debts disappearing, which also means you're going to have more money for your retirement lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of us just tend to carry more debt throughout the our working career, and a lot of that's because we feel like we have a paycheck coming, so we're going to be fine. And sometimes it's just because stuff comes up, right? I mean, things happen, and like you said, getting rid of credit card debts, maybe paying off the home mortgage, maybe even paying off student loans, right? A lot of our clients are paying their kids' student loans, or maybe even theirs still, and so having those come off the books, it does free up some extra cash flow. To now begin, again, making a little bit more of your money work for you and getting a little bit more concentrated on that fast-approaching retirement. Because, again, it's funny because it just comes rather quickly, right? All of a sudden you're 40, then you're 50, and then all of a sudden it's like, man, I'm 58 years old and I wanted to retire at 62. I better really get things situated. So having some money come off the books by disappearing debt or maybe kids coming off the payroll can be very big, positive indicators of the budget.
You're listening to the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler. And again, the number to call if you'd like to have a conversation with Logan about your individual situation, 888-823-PLAN, 888-823-PLAN. That number is for Gary Financial. And as we have talked about so many times, a lot of people out there might be considering downsizing as they get close to retirement or after they retire. And, over the years, that has been traditionally the way that a lot of people have reduced their expenses. But these days, with real estate prices the way they are, it may not work out that way. But how about the folks who downsize? Is that a way still for folks to have more money in retirement?
Yeah, like you said, Ron, you brought up some very good points there about, downsizing is the traditional thought as far as, okay, you know what, Logan, I got this big house, cost me $2,000, $3,000 a month, but when I retire, I'm going to, sell this and buy a townhome on the golf course or a condo or maybe just a smaller home. But like you said, if housing prices and interest rates are still very high, where's the cost savings, right? I've had some clients who are like, well, show me the cost savings. And, the question you asked again is very, very prevalent, where is it still a strategy to be used? And I would say yes. I think downsizing still is very appropriate for a lot of people. Yes, financially, but also, as far as upkeep, maintenance, a lot of those types of things where maybe our physical well-being might not want to take care of something that big anymore, right? Might not need the big yard, might not need the big house. So I would say it still is a very realistic idea for a lot of people. However, it is getting a little bit tricky on the cost-saving side, right? Because some of us that have maybe no mortgage or little to no mortgage, it might be hard to sell that and buy something else, as well as we're not counting in moving out of state, right? Because we have a lot of clients that are moving from California to other states as far as just to save money and things like that. So I would say majority of our clients that are approaching that age and that downsizing was a thought, I still think it's a very prevalent thing that a lot of people are using, and I still think it is an effective strategy, not only on the financial end, but also for some of the other, the other indicators I mentioned.
And again, as we have talked about so many times before, it's important when you retire not to just retire from something, but to retire to something. And one of those things that you might want to do in retirement is pick up some kind of a, part-time job that you just enjoy doing, and at the same time, it would put a little extra money in your pocket.
Yeah, I mean those twilight careers, right? Where you have a different career after your career. I've seen all of it. I would say, where in good cases, right? I've seen some people just completely retire and enjoy it, but I've also seen some people work at the golf course, right? They clean up the golf carts, or they're the starter, or they volunteer at the local charities, the Boys and Girls Clubs, right? Maybe it's getting involved in local community charities and things like that. I've seen a lot of those things where people tend to retire to something and not full-time, but have something to do day in and day out. And I think it does give some people that are a little bit worried about, what should I do with my time, right? I can only watch so much TV and play so much golf or tennis or whatever it is. So it's nice to have something to be able to retire to be able to have some of your time spent, but maybe not putting in that 30, 40, 50-hour week grind like you were used to the last 30 years.
Yeah, I know that you spend a lot of time talking to folks about all of these things when you have those first conversations, those discovery meetings, as we call them. And it's a free conversation, and it's a way to get started. And I'm going to give out that number again here for folks to get in touch with you and to arrange all that. But what are the things that you first talk about when you get together with a new person?
Yeah, Ron, it really just depends on what the clients are coming in for. But as we always talk about, majority of the people that call into the show are typically over age 50, and they're probably going through a lot of these situations we just talked about, right? A lot of them are saying, well, Logan, I have some extra money each month. Where should I be putting it? I have a good retirement savings, but, should I be having more or less? Should I be paying down the house, right? There's a lot of those questions that will come up. And the nice part is at that discovery meeting, we really just get a chance to get to know each other. I think it's super important for us to really understand what it is you're trying to do, making sure our team's a good fit, and also giving you more information about our team and, some of the solutions and strategies that we can implement to typically put yourself in a better situation. And a lot of our clients that come on board with us love the fact that we're independent, love the fact that we've been around a long time, and that we really focus on you and your financial plan, and not just trying to push a product, but being able to put together solutions that help you have not only, financially a better retirement, but also mentally having a better retirement, having a plan put together to help get you through some of those tricky storms throughout your retirement.
And that key word in all of that is plan, and that's why it's incorporated into the phone number, 888-823-PLAN. That's 888-823-7526, your number to call. You can have a conversation with Logan Sadler. It's called a discovery meeting. It's not going to cost you anything and not going to obligate you to do anything at all beyond that. And Logan Sadler works with 3 different generations of client families, and many of those clients have been with the firm for more than 25 years. Logan Sadler has been doing this for quite some time himself and would love to sit down and talk with you, take a deep dive into your financial situation and tell you where you stand. That's the important thing, to get an assessment of where you are now and then find out what you need to do to get where you want to go in your retirement. 888-823-PLAN. Logan Sadler is the VP and Chief Investment Officer at Regary Financial. 2 convenient offices, Hemet and Redlands. Call the number today. Set up a time to sit down and talk. 888-823-PLAN. You're listening to the Financial Beat. I'm Ron Stutz along with Logan Sadler. We'll have more coming up in just a moment.
Don't you want to see sharp and not be flat in retirement? This is the Financial Beat.
We're back now with more of the Financial Beat. Ladies and gentlemen, Logan Sadler is on the radio. Go tell everybody you know. And this radio show is not the only way you can get lots of good information from Logan Sadler. If you've been listening to this show for quite some time and perhaps there was a show you missed, you might be able to go and catch up with that on the podcast that Logan Sadler has available for you. We'll talk more about that a little bit later on. Phone number to call if you'd like to have a discovery meeting is 888-823-PLAN. That is 888-823-PLAN. Call that number. You can call during the show, in fact. Leave your name and your phone number. You'll get a call back from Regary Financial and set a time to have a conversation with Logan about your situation. This is cost-free and obligation-free. Well, let's talk about, there are consequences if you don't take care of yourself. Later on in life, they kind of magnify. But let's talk about tax consequences. Different types of accounts have different tax consequences. And I thought today we could talk about those advantages and disadvantages in different types of accounts and how you use them or don't use them in your retirement planning. What about tax-deferred accounts like 401ks and IRAs? Talk about those and how that relates to, the taxes you're going to have to pay.
Yeah, that's a great point. As you guys know, a lot of you listen to the show regularly. We love to talk about taxes on here because I think it's such a very important part to the overall financial plan. And starting out there with the big one, tax deferred accounts like 401ks and IRAs, 403bs, anything that kind of falls in that tax deferred realm can be very, very great when you're working for a lot of you where you're putting away money each month. And basically it's knocking down your income throughout your working years. And the whole thought was that in retirement, you're going to be paying a lower tax, so it'll be fine, right? Keep deferring it. You won't pay any tax, but when you retire and start withdrawing, you're going to be in a lower tax bracket, and you'll be able to take that money out and pay taxes on it, but it should be at a lower bracket. The downside, however, is we're seeing with a lot of people that are approaching retirement or in retirement, is they're probably not in a lower tax bracket, right? Some people may be, but some aren't, right? If they're making $100,000 a year while they're working, they're probably making close to $100,000 a year in retirement, if not more. And then you factor in tax deferred accounts like 401ks and IRAs. They also have those RMDs on them, right? So a lot of people thought they were going to leave their 401ks and things like that to their kids. However, the RMD, which is a required minimum distribution, which comes in down the road in retirement, you also have to begin withdrawing that and paying taxes on it. So how RMDs or deferred benefit like 401ks and things like that are calculated and how they're taxed, it's one of the more common questions I get with a client is, that's great, Logan, I have $500,000 or I have $1 million in my 401k. How is that taxed, right? It's taxed at ordinary income. So as you begin to draw that out, it's taxed at whatever your ordinary income rate is, and it's taxed as ordinary income. So it's basically just like having a paycheck. So it's very important to understand, should I be doing tax-free accounts or tax-deferred accounts? It really depends on the individual, but understanding that your 401k and IRA have not been taxed, meaning they will be taxed at a future date when you begin to withdraw that. And then the whole goal is, what type of tax situation are we looking at down the road, and how's that going to factor in?
On the other hand, you have tax-free accounts like Roth IRAs where, the taxes on that has been paid up front, and that can make a really big difference for folks.
Yeah, one common thread you'll get from probably all the questions you're going to ask me, right, is there's only two questions, right? Do you want to pay tax now or do you want to pay tax later, right? There's true. No, do you not want to pay any tax? It's when do you want to pay it? It's now or later. That's basically the only, well, and at least we get choices, right? I would like to have at least two choices, and so at least I get to pick if I want to pay it now or later. But so, for example, Ron, in your case, like you just said, those Roth IRAs, you would have paid tax as you put the money away. Now, the nice part about that is a lot of people go, well, why would I pay tax now? Well, in some cases, if we're in a decent tax bracket, paying the taxes now at, let's say, the 22% and putting the money away and letting it grow, any interest and any money put in there grows 100% tax-free. Mm-hmm. So down the road, when you go to retire, if you have $500,000 or $1 million in there, like we were talking about, that money would be 100% tax-free upon withdrawal, right? For income or lump sums or however you took it out, it would be 100% tax-free. Why a lot of people tend to lean towards this scenario in some cases, especially more recently, is because a lot of us see where the current country might be going, right, as far as the state of the economy, and understand that, well, listen, if I'm paying 22% tax rate now, and I probably will pay close to that in retirement if everything stayed the same, what would happen if tax rates went up? Would I be paying an even higher tax in retirement? And that's where a lot of the times the Roth IRA, especially for younger clients or maybe clients even approaching retirement might be good times to start things is, well, what if I had all that money in a tax-free account? Wouldn't that be better longer term, not only for myself, but also for beneficiaries and my inheritances and things like that? And a lot of the times the answer is yes. So having those tax-free accounts like a Roth IRA can be very, very crucial to sometimes having a more successful retirement just by being able to not only manage returns and things like that are important in the markets and stuff like that, but also being able to manage how is my tax exposure going to look now and throughout retirement.
Yeah, and, as we talked about so many times on this show, it's good to pay those taxes now because rates are probably going to be higher in the future.
That's the question, right? 22% or 12% or whatever your tax bracket is, it might begin to look like a very good deal here when things change.
It's amazing how so many of the concepts we talk about on this show get repeated over and over and over from week to week, but I think we all need to be reminded of those things for sure because they make sense.
Yes, I agree.
How about taxable accounts like after-tax brokerage accounts? Explain those if you would, and what kind of a difference can that make?
Yeah, these are some of my favorite accounts that I say are kind of like a hybrid between a Roth IRA and between an IRA, where meaning you're paying some taxes now and some taxes later, and you have a little bit more tax control. So, for example, let's say you have say you put $100,000 in a brokerage account, right? That $100,000, that money you put in, is never taxed only the interest that you earn off of it or the losses on it are taxed at gains or losses, right? So the nice part about brokerage accounts versus an IRA or things like that is these are taxed at what's called capital gains rates. Now, there's basically two types of taxes, right? There's ordinary income, which we talked about earlier, and then there's capital gains rates. So understanding that basically if you own a stock in this account and you put $100,000 in it and it made $10,000 of profit and you held that stock for 1 year, you would pay long-term capital gains rates on that $10,000 of profit, right? So in that example, your $100,000 wasn't taxed because you already had paid tax on it, so you put it in there. Now your $10,000 in interest is taxed in that case at long-term capital gains if you hold it for more than a year. Now for a lot of people, they might say, well, what's the difference in capital gains treatment? Well, typically capital gains rates can be taxed anywhere from 10 to 20%, which is typically better than some people's ordinary income brackets. So they can be a little bit more tax friendly, as well as sometimes you have losses in the account, which would then sometimes offset some of the gains rates. So they could be a very tax-friendly account for some people, of course, depending on how they're invested and what the returns look like and all that stuff. But I think just generally speaking, I think it's great to have three types of tax exposure. It's nice to have tax-deferred, it's nice to have tax-free, and it's also nice to have those taxable brokerage accounts because those can be taxed at capital gains rates, which in some cases will allow you to have a little bit more tax flexibility and also decide when you want to pay the taxes on that account.
You're listening to The Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, and we're talking about tax consequences here. We'll get back to that in just a second. 888-823-PLAN. That's your number to call if you'd like to get in touch with Regari Financial. 888-823-PLAN. It's good for a free discovery meeting and discovery visit, I should say. And you're not going to be signing yourself up for any kind of obligation. There are no strings attached at all. More on that coming up in just a few minutes here. Logan, you still play CDs when you play music?
No, I don't. I actually gave away a big book of my CDs not that long ago, just because I don't even have a CD player anymore.
Oh, really? Well, I do. I got so many hundreds of CDs. I don't want to get rid of those things. So, but let's talk about a different kind of CD.
Okay,
certificates of deposit. Tell us about that and how that works when it comes to taxes.
Yeah, that's a great point there. The CDs are great, right? I think CDs can be good for a lot of different reasons. As you'll always hear me say, I don't think anything is bad or anything is good. It really just depends on what we're using it for. The downside is what you're seeing with a lot of people right now is you're seeing CD rates paying good. So heck, why not put money over there, right? You're seeing a lot of people flock to CDs because it's been, let's be honest, it's been 10 or 15 years since we've seen these types of rates. So a lot of people are excited. The downside is a lot of people aren't aware of how they're taxed. I've seen a lot of people, they'll put, $100,000, I've seen $1 million, I've seen $2 million, I've seen a lot of money stuffed into CDs for longer term investments. And a lot of the times, it doesn't make a lot of tax sense to utilize a CD in some cases, especially if you're higher income for two reasons. One is it's taxed every year. So if you do a 1-year CD, that interest you made was great, right? It made 3%, 4%, 5%, whatever it made. The downside of that is every year, whether you want to or not, when that CD pays out, that interest is automatically taxed at ordinary income, not capital gains rates. So the problem with that is some of you that are putting, $1 million in CDs and it's making 5%, you have $50,000 a year of taxable interest coming due that you're not actually netting 5%. Right? So you want to look at what the purpose is of that investment and what we're using it for. Safety is great, right? So I think having safety in a portfolio is good, but there might be some other ways to do it that might be a little bit more tax-friendly, like maybe treasuries or municipal bonds or something that might be a little bit more tax-friendly. I think CDs are great for people that have, if you have $100,000 and you say, you know what, I'm buying a house this next year, perfect. A 1-year CD probably is a good spot to put that. Especially with rates, you'll get all your money out in 1 year and you'll get whatever interest was made. The downside is when you look to long-term investing and looking at tax advantages, it doesn't leave a whole lot of room for long-term growth, but also for tax, a diversification. Just every year you're paying taxes on the money that comes due. So it doesn't really allow you to net closer to that 5% range, right? Now it allows you to net a lot less, especially for those of you that are higher income. So understanding how CDs are taxed is super important to the overall plan.
Yeah. One more thing I wanted to mention here when it comes to tax consequences. How about life insurance? That has been the subject of many a conversation on this radio show.
Yeah, so there's two types of life insurances, right? There's one that pays a death benefit. So if you pass away, life insurance is generally tax-free. So when you look around, majority of the time it is a tax-free benefit. So if you get a $200,000 death benefit, it would traditionally be tax-free, which everyone loves when we say those words, as well as we talk a lot about the cash value life insurances, which are IULs, which stands for Index Universal Life. For some clients, as an alternative to their Roth or maybe their brokerage account, having some money in an IUL could be a good spot for some people. And the nice part about it is on some of those, you could borrow out some of the money at a tax-free rate, right? So it's another way to create some tax-free income. Again, I don't think you should have all your money in those, but I think as part of a asset class in the portfolio, it could be very efficient. And it's another way for some of us, especially if we're higher net worth or higher income earners, it's a great way to get some money in tax-free situations, as well as leveraging a death benefit to utilize either one of those at a tax-free rate. So I think, those 5 things, Ron, is very important to look at how things are taxed. And one of the things that most people are coming to our office for and coming into the discovery meeting and wanting to move forward with our firm is because I think a lot of people out there have an advisor that buys stocks or bonds, or they have a 401k, but they don't understand, number one, they don't have an income plan. Right. So they don't know, okay, when I retire, where can I draw income? How long is it going to last? What about inflation? But also, we haven't looked at what's going to happen with tax rates, right? What's going to happen with your income right now based off taxes? If tax rates went up, what's going to happen with your income? And how are we insulating ourselves from the potential of rising tax rates? Or even if tax rates stayed the same, are we not doing anything about it to make sure that we're putting ourselves in a better situation to protect ourselves from taxes as much as possible throughout your retirement? And that's exactly what our firm does, is we look at the full picture. We look at the income plan. We look at your assets, how they're allocated, your risk, your tax situation, and estate planning, and making sure that your full picture is put together, not to get you to retirement, but also to get you through retirement.
Well, I'll tell you, we talk about all these things all the time on this show, and there's so much strategy involved. And if you're not employing some type of strategy in your efforts to get to and through retirement, you need to call Logan Sadler. 888-823-PLAN. 888-823-PLAN. Plan being the key word here. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call. Leave your message with your name and phone number. You'll get a call back from Regari, and then you can set a convenient time to have a conversation with Logan. And he's exactly the person you're going to talk to. He's not going to pass you off on anybody else. Same guy you hear on this radio show every single week. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call. Get to know Logan. He can get to know you. You can get some answers to your questions, and then decide if you'd like to move on from there. 888-823-PLAN. Logan Sadler is the Vice President and Chief Investment Officer at Regari Financial, serving you in Southern California. We appreciate your listening to the show today, and we'll be right back after this.
Do you ever find yourself skipping through countless songs trying to find the perfect one? Yeah, we've been there too, and know it can be frustrating. Much like skipping through the countless advertisements from other financial advisors, it can seem like there's so much misinformation. But here on the Financial Beat, you can rest assured we're providing you with the best information possible. So don't push skip on this show, because we have some important information coming up.
We're back now with more of the Financial Beat, and the beat goes on, as they say. Logan Sadler is here, and doesn't matter if you live in Rancho Cucamonga, Banning, Beaumont, Temecula, Loma Linda, Corona, wherever you are today. Thank you very much for being with us. Of course, convenient offices for Regari Financial in Hemet and Redlands, and Logan would love to have a conversation with you. It's not going to cost you anything. It's cost-free, and it's obligation-free. 888-823-PLAN. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call to make that happen. You can have a discovery meeting, discover things about your portfolio, and get started on putting together a plan. Get some answers to some of your basic questions, and then you're not obligated at all to do anything after that. 888-823-PLAN. Logan, I love all those YouTube videos you have. They are quite instructive and they're never boring. You do a good job with those.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, they've been quite fun, and we've been getting a lot of positive feedback from a lot of you guys out there, the listeners. And if you haven't yet, go ahead and go over to YouTube, type in The Financial Beat, and you'll see me, Logan Sadler, there. You'll see my face as well as the channel. And we have a bunch of different videos we upload there each week. And a lot of them are 3 to 5 minutes long, as you were saying, Ron. Not super lengthy, but they do give a lot of different, positive reviews on different financial strategies or products or different just tips and solutions that a lot of people are asking about. Some good content for you guys to check out. Go over there and click The Financial Beat and click subscribe, follow along, and let us know some other videos you might want us to do in the future.
Normally we do a fun fact of the week here, and this is kind of I don't know if I'd want to call it a fun fact, but it's really an interesting tidbit of information here. But people who can't speak because of some kind of brain injury are often still able to sing. This is because speech is a function of the left brain. Singing is a right brain function. I never realized that until I read it earlier this week, but that's actually a wonderful thing for folks who can sing, for sure.
Yeah, that's amazing. I would never have thought with anybody with a brain injury who was not able to talk could sing. That's amazing. And then I think when you break down the human brain and the heart and all the things that kind of go into us as far as the so to speak computer inside of us, right? It is amazing how things can work.
Yeah, the human body is something else. There's no question
really
about
is.
it. Ah, boy, I'm telling you.
It's amazing.
And as you get closer and closer to retirement, as you age, you pay more attention to things like that than you did when you were young, that's for sure.
Yes, exactly.
Hey, got a quote of the week here for you from former President of the United States, Dwight Eisenhower. In preparing for battle, I have found that plans are useless, but planning is indispensable. What did he mean by that?
It's going to be tough to decipher, but I'm going to say, I think I know what he's trying to say here, and I do agree with this for a lot of things. It's always great to have a plan, right? However, the plan doesn't always go exactly according to plan, right? So I think it's important to have a game plan, whether you're talking about retirement, whether you're talking about, whether you're talking about doing a project in the backyard, whether you're talking about whatever you're talking about, right? A road trip. It's nice to have a plan. Now, however, sometimes it doesn't go according to plan, and you got to kind of tear it up and make a new one on the fly, right? And I think that's very true with retirement planning, where I've made some of these plans you make, Ron, are I would say as perfect as you can get it. 1 year later, something will happen, and that whole plan needs to be redone, right? Where maybe we're going to work 5 more years and we lost our job. Well, perfect. That 5-year plan doesn't necessarily work now, right? So we got to recreate it. But I think having kind of a roadmap in life and battle and whatever it's going to be is super important. But being able to understand that things are going to change and making adaptations to that is going to be very very useful throughout your time frame.
Another take on that that I thought about is if you have a plan, that's great, but if you don't actually follow it, then you're not planning.
That's a good one too.
So different ways to look into things. But let's talk about charitable giving tips and tricks. People tend to be more focused on charitable giving as we approach the end of the year, and a lot of people trying to worry about tax deductions and all that kind of thing. What about exploring a few tips and tricks to help them be as tax efficient as possible? And that is always one of the goals here. Understand the standard deduction. I guess that's the baseline where everybody ought to start.
Yeah, I think a lot of people aren't necessarily sure of how they're even file, long form or standard form or however they're doing it. And a lot of people aren't aware of how maybe their deductions aren't even being really used, right? A lot of people think, I'm doing this for taxes, but it doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense, or maybe it doesn't even save you any money. So I think understanding the standard deduction is a great place to start for a lot of people, and understanding how that really works. And everybody files differently, whether you're joint, single, your income levels, maybe you own a home, maybe you don't. There's a lot of different things that have changed over the last 5 years, I would say, where a lot of people aren't necessarily sure of how they're filing. And understand the standard deduction. I would say if you have a tax person or even a financial advisor, have your taxes reviewed and they could show you some areas there. I think having a financial advisor or a tax person that really is helping you plan is super important, because you could save sometimes a lot of money by just understanding kind of how your tax rates work and how your deductions and things like that work, and really making sure that you're being tax sensitive throughout the year is super important.
Yeah, and we're talking about charitable giving tips and tricks for everybody here. Bunching charitable contributions. First of all, what does that mean, and why might it be a good strategy for somebody out there listening to the show?
Yeah, sometimes to fall into that standard deduction of the charity limits and things, you can sometimes bunching means putting, if you're going to do $5,000 this year and $5,000 next year, maybe if you just did both of those contributions in 1 year, right? So bunching them up into one contribution for charitable gifting and things like that can be a very good strategy to sometimes get more in there to maybe save you some overall money longer term. So I think bunching is a really great way, especially when talking about charitable contributions. If you were going to be charitable anyway, and if you have the extra money and you were going to do it this year and next year, it might make more sense to do that 10 this year and 10 next year, right? All in the 1 year. Obviously, if the budget permits, but bunching could be a great way to really save some money in some cases, especially if we were already going to be charitable.
Okay, we're talking about charitable giving tips and tricks here. And how about donating appreciated stock instead of cash? What is the difference in giving stock to a charity instead of giving them cash?
Yeah, what's funny is a lot of people aren't aware. So let's say you have I'm making this up, okay? So any disclaimers I got to throw in there, we're throwing in there, okay? So basically, just an illustrated purpose for this conversation. Let's say you bought Amazon and you put $100,000 in it, and now it's worth $500,000, right? If you wanted to sell that stock, obviously, you could take the money into profits, and then capital gains taxes would come in, right? So some of us were going to give money to charities anyway, maybe not that much, but we were going to give some. So let's use this, just as an example. So if you were going to gift cash, I have a lot of clients that are very charitable. They give a lot of money to charities. Some people $20,000 a year, $50,000 a year. I mean, I've seen some even higher numbers than that, where people are very, very passionate about the charities or churches or things like that they're part of, which I think is great. The nice part about it is if you have highly appreciated stock, like I was just mentioning, you could actually gift that stock to that qualifying charity, and they would then be able to sell that stock, turn it to cash, and not have to pay capital gains rates, nor would you, right? Mm-hmm. The downside is obviously you don't get the money, but the nice part about it is if you were going to gift that amount of money anyway to the charity, whatever amount it was, the nice part is you could do that, right? So it's a great way to really give money to the charities with, money that you were going to either pay taxes on or gift anyway. It could be a very, very good way. That's why when I see some clients sometimes where they're writing checks to charities, I'm always like, wait a minute, let's take a look at the overall accounts, the assets, and is there any more efficient ways we could be gifting that money to the charities that would help you but also help them?
Yeah, and how about exploring donor-advised funds? What is that all about?
Yeah, donor-advised funds are not for everybody. They are a great tool, however, that can be used. And essentially, it's a way to create, you can gift money into your own donor-advised fund, essentially, to where, and they can get rather complex. So I'm just going to simplify here. But example is you can gift, again, highly appreciated stocks or cash or assets to the donor-advised fund on a tax-free basis that could then distribute to charities. They're managed so they can still grow and there's money in them and things like that. And you can gift from them basically like a gifting bank account, let's call it, right? But they're also invested, right? So that's the nice part about a donor-advised fund. For some of our higher net worth clients, those could be a great way where we're trying to shift money over to charities or limit tax exposure. Using donor-advised funds can be very, very useful for a lot of people, but it's not for everybody. So you want to make sure it makes sense and it's a well-established tool for you to use. I
have heard some people say you should satisfy your RMD through a QCD. Yeah, that's a lot of acronyms there. What does that even mean?
Yeah, not. That sounds like you just said buy a CD is what you said, right? But no, I'm joking. So RMD and QCD. RMDs are required minimum distributions, as we talked about. For example, those of you that are under 64, I believe it is, you got to start taking your RMDs at 75. Those of you over that age, you got to start taking them at 73. What that means is if you had $1 million in an IRA or a 401k, when you reach those ages, you got to start drawing out a percentage. Let's say the percentage is, let's just say 4% to make it easy. If you had $1 million, you got to draw $40,000 a year out to pay taxes on it. And then you could do whatever you want with it, reinvest it or spend it or whatever you got to do. The downside is taxes are due. A lot of you out there that are, in that age group, you might not need your RMD. You might have wanted to let that money sit and grow, or you just don't want to take it out right now because you don't want to pay any more in taxes. So using a QCD, it is not buying a CD. What it is basically is qualified charitable distribution. So you're actually eligible to gift your RMD amount. So let's say in that case, that $40,000, you can gift that $40,000 directly to a charity from your qualified account directly to a charity, and you don't pay any taxes on it, nor do they, and it counts as your RMD. So that's one of those strategies where if you were going to gift, $10,000 to a charity, using your RMD might be the best way to do that because, again, counts as your RMD. You're not paying any income taxes on it, nor does the charity. So it's really kind of a triple win there for a lot of you that were going to gift money to charities anyway. You could do up to, I believe it's still about $100,000 is the max you could do. But for a lot of you out there using these strategies we're talking about, this is a lot of the stuff that your financial advisor and your tax professional should be recommending to you or at least having the conversations about. And that's why when we talk a lot on the radio show or even when you come in for those discovery meetings, we talk a lot about, yes, investments are good. Stocks, bonds, mutual funds, annuities, CDs, all those can be very effective and can be good in financial planning. Deciding on how much should be in each one of those really depends on the overall client. But taking a deeper dive and understanding the tax consequences of the accounts, the tax planning of the accounts, as well as are we looking at any gifting strategies or any type of tax advantages that we could really throw into the plan to overall create a better, efficient plan that's going to save you money on taxes. And yes, get investment returns and all the other stuff is important, but wrapping that into the full financial plan, that's where somebody like Regary Financial can really, really make an impact, not just on your investment accounts, but also on your overall financial well-being and then really the overall financial success of the plan, and hoping to keep a little bit more money in your pocket and pay a little less in taxes along the way.
That's where somebody like Logan Sadler can help you. And if you'd like to call 888-823-PLAN, you could arrange to have a conversation with Logan about, not just tax strategies, but everything having to do with retirement and financial planning. The number to call, once again, is 888-823-PLAN. This show is all about getting you to and through retirement, and Logan Sadler stands by. He's ready, willing, and able to help. But you need to call this number first to make it happen. Reach out with the call, 888-823-PLAN, 888-823-PLAN. At Regary Financial, they have terrific partnerships with local CPAs, attorneys, real estate agents, mortgage lenders, even Medicare specialists to help offer you well-rounded guidance and everything on the financial side for their clients. You can get a discovery meeting going at no cost and no obligation. 888-823-PLAN. That's your number to call. Ron Sutz here along with Logan Sadler, and we'll have more coming up in just a moment, so stay with us.
Are you worried about whether you're ready for retirement? Logan Sadler and the team at Regary Financial can help. Just text the word ADVICE to 21000 to take Regary Financial's free retirement roadmap checkup. Text the word ADVICE to 21000 and we'll send you a link to all of our free resources. From there, you can click on the button for the retirement roadmap checkup. You'll just have to answer a few questions and then you can see how prepared you are for retirement. This is a great starting point for people just starting to think about retirement. Text the word ADVICE to 21000 to get your free retirement roadmap checkup today. That's the word ADVICE to 21000.
Do you hear that? That's the sound of a plan that has some serious issues. Much better. That's the sound of a plan that was created by someone listening to the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler. So which sound is your financial plan making?
We're back now with more of the Financial Beat. Ladies and gentlemen, Logan Sadler is here. And Logan, I mentioned earlier today that you have podcasts that are available for folks who may want to go back and catch a show, or maybe they weren't able to listen until halfway through a program or whatever the case may be. Mm-hmm. How do folks access all those podcasts out there?
Yeah, so they're available on any of the podcast streaming platforms, like even on YouTube. They're on Amazon, Spotify, all those different areas, Apple Music. And you could type in The Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, and there's well over 100 episodes that you could check out. And again, the podcast is a great way where if you like the format of this show right now you're listening to, there's a bunch of those out there for you to catch up on and get some tips and tricks on your financial situation.
If you want to get some tips and tricks, all you have to do is call 888-823-PLAN, and you can set up a time to have a conversation with Logan Sadler. 888-823-PLAN, 888-823-7526. But incorporate the word plan, and that makes it easy to remember. 888-823-PLAN. Logan Sadler would love the opportunity to get to know you. You can get to know him. No obligation involved here. It's not going to cost you anything at all, so why not reach out with a call? Got a little history lesson here for everybody today. 84 years ago, November 4th, 1939, the first automobile with air conditioning was available for sale. The AC option was available for $274 until 1941. World War II stopped the production of luxury items like car air conditioning, and it didn't become available again until 1953.
Wow.
I wasn't aware of all that until I read it this week and getting ready for this show, but we couldn't do without air conditioning these days.
I was going to say luxury. I'm like, man, I don't even know. You can't even buy a car without air conditioning nowadays. It's not luxury anymore, right?
Yeah,
that's a need. That's like having tires on the car.
Yeah, exactly.
Man, that is amazing. It is interesting, though, how that came about and then went away and then came back in 1953. Man, that's very interesting. But it is funny how far we've come, right? Because, that was a long time ago, but we're not talking hundreds of years ago, to where it's funny now where it's like you said, I just couldn't even imagine having a car without air conditioning. And whenever it does get not blowing cold air in the summertime, you're like, man, I better go to the dealership or the mechanic and get this looked at.
Yeah, exactly. Well, also, $274 is how much it cost in the beginning, but $274 was a lot of money back then.
It's funny. Yeah, you calculated 1939? You said.
Yeah.
$274. I would have loved to go back and do the inflation adjusted amount on that, but that sounds like a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something to think about. So, we've come a long way, baby, as I say. So, hey, let's go to the mailbag here because we got some great questions, as always. First one is from Frank in French Valley. Frank says, I understand that my Social Security benefit grows a little bit every year that I put off starting it. Other than losing out on that bigger monthly payment, are there any compelling reasons to not start my benefit now at age 64? Wow, here we go with this topic again.
Yeah, right off the bat, we're getting right into it. Yeah, I would say that's a really great question, and I'm going to answer it, but I'll also refer you over to our YouTube channel where I've done about 4 videos on these different numbers here, and actually thrown up on screen, done some examples of the overall cost and all the things I think a lot of you guys will have questions on. So head over to the YouTube channel and type in The Financial Beat to check some more deeper videos out. But in regards to that question, answering it directly here, Frank, there is a few different reasons that I'd recommend further looking into it. I will never tell anybody just off the cusp here of when to take Social Security because there's a lot of other components. But in your example here, I would say some of the reasons of why you wouldn't is, number one, like you said, each year you delay payment, your amount goes up. It's around 7 or 8% every year you do not take it. So I always ask clients, well, if you're not retiring and you don't need the money right now, what other investment do you have that's giving you a 7 to 8% rate of return, pretty much guaranteed? Well, the answer probably is not many, if not any at all, right? The next thing is taxes. What is your current tax rate? Because a lot of it's nice to take that Social Security benefit now, but if you're still making really good money, the taxes on your Social Security could be taxed very heavily to where you're netting very, very little of that amount. So would it have made more sense to let it grow? So I think those are the 2 things that I'll look at. Also, is that higher income more important now or more important when you retire? Those are the 2 big things or 3 big things I would look at there when going over this. And we have a lot of different ways where we'll go through this in our discovery meeting, Frank, where we'll talk about what assets you have, what's your current income, what Social Security benefit do you have, also when is that more optimal time to take it, and really kind of do some math to make sure we're taking it at the right time because it is a big decision to make sure we're utilizing that correctly. And there is a lot more factors than just that one you mentioned. And that's a very great question. I love the way you phrased it. But head over to the YouTube channel, check out some further videos on that we've done, as well as I'd be happy to, give us a call. I'd be happy to kind of go through your situation and see, based off other assets and things like that, when would be the best time to take it.
Hey, Frank, the number to call is 888-823-PLAN. Remember that, 888-823-PLAN. Next question is from Tess in Loma Linda. Tess says, I have a lot of anxiety watching my investments bounce up and down in the market. It didn't bother me when I was 40, but it bothers me a lot more now at 55 because I'm closer to retirement. Well, we've talked about that so many times.
Yeah.
She goes on to say, is that volatility actually a problem, or do I need to just get over it?
That's a great question. So, yeah, like you said, we've talked about this one a lot as well. And very valid question, right? There's a lot going on. I would say, there is a lot more factors into this now as far as, you might be fine or you might really need to make some changes, because I do see a lot of people, as you approach retirement, your investments and things like that should be more geared up towards getting ready to retire, right? I think it's super important when you look at the 3 stages. We always talk about it. If you're not driving and you're just listening to this, draw it with your finger, draw a line going up, right? That's your accumulation phase. That's when you're 30, 40 years old, you're working, everything's great. Market's going up and down all over the place, but as long as you got a job, you're probably doing fine, right? That's the growth phase, the accumulation phase. Then you have that preservation stage, which is typically around 50, 55 years old, where a lot of people say, Logan, I've done pretty well. I just don't want to lose this amount of money, right? I don't want to lose it. I want to make sure I have it because I might retire in 3 or 4 years. So that's the preservation stage. And then you have the distribution phase, which is coming down the mountain, where now we want to start turning those assets and things we've grown into income streams, right? Or being able to preserve that throughout your retirement. And so you are at that point right now where, at 55, you're getting closer to retirement. I think it's super important to understand how much of your money you have at risk, as well as if something did happen in the markets, which, I always say I don't try to predict the markets because I could predict 2 things, right? Market will go up, market will go down. I have no idea when it's going to do that, right? There's a lot of indicators we could look at, but never a precise, exact scenario. So it's important to understand the markets do go up and down. So it's important to understand how are you invested based off your risk tolerance, and is there anything else we should be doing to get ourselves further diversified to gear up for retirement that's coming up?
This is literally a conversation that Logan has had with hundreds of people because, it's all so important. When you're young and you have a lot of risk in your portfolio, you've got time to recover over time if you suffer losses. But when you get closer to retirement, you may not have enough time to recover. So important to kind of dial it back, and a lot of that, of course, depends on your comfortability with risk and all that sort of thing. But that's a conversation that Logan has a lot. One more question today is from Virgil in Calamasa. Virgil says, with the potential of full-fledged war underway or looming in so many places around the world, what move should I be making with my investments? Wow.
Yeah, that's another great question.
Yeah. No kidding.
There's a lot going on. I always tell people, I'm having conversations a lot with people that are coming on board with our firm that are worried, right? And I think a lot of people that don't have a full plan are more worried than others because we don't really, number one, if you're not understanding how you're invested, what areas you're invested in, and if you don't have any protection inside your portfolio or your plan, it's very scary, right? So I would say a lot of people, you shouldn't be basing exactly how you're invested just off the news of the day because there's always going to be news, right? So I think it's important to understand how you're invested. And if your plan is put together properly, you shouldn't have to make these random adjustments or be as fearful because hey, if something happens, here's what my portfolio is going to do, right? Here's what my returns could look like. Here's what my losses could look like. Here's my protection. Here's my alternative investments. Here's my, tax-free money. All these different types of scenarios you want to make sure you understand. And I would say to answer that question, I think it's super important you understand with everything going on how you're invested, understanding where your money is at, and what type of safety levers you might have inside your portfolio and how the overall outcome of something bad happening could affect your overall retirement. And I would say that's super important, maybe now more than ever.
Some really great questions today from our listeners. We always get good questions, but these 3 right here really cut to the heart of a lot of what we talk about every single week.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of stuff going on, and like you said, these three kind of cut right to the chase there as far as Social Security, market volatility, and then also more market volatility as far as what the heck's going on in the world and where should I be. And I think that's why you're listening to the show right now. If you've stayed around, kept listening to us and Ron and enjoyed it, it's super important to understand that there is teams out there like ours that typically could bring a lot of value to you and your retirement plan by helping build out not only the tactical side of all that, but also helping you manage all your emotions and things like that throughout these tricky times, because not only now is tricky, but it will always be tricky, right? There's always things that come up, and having a good team on your side, I think, is super important. And keeping yourself informed by listening to shows like this and checking out the YouTube videos and things like that. I think education and information is key, and we definitely appreciate you guys sticking around, and hopefully you enjoyed the show.
If you'd like to take advantage of all the wisdom and the experience of Logan Sadler and his outstanding team of folks at Regary Financial, call this number, 888-823-PLAN, 888-823-PLAN. That is the number to call to get a discovery meeting going. It's something you can arrange for free. There is no obligation whatsoever, no strings attached. You can have a conversation either on the phone. You can get some answers to your questions, or maybe you might want to have a Zoom meeting, or you might want to come into one of the convenient offices. Either way, it's not going to cost you anything. Hemet and Redlands, those are the two office locations in Southern California. Again, to pursue this, call 888-823-PLAN. Logan talks about all these concepts every single week about getting to and through retirement and doing it in the most efficient way possible. And that includes being tax efficient as well. If you'd like to take advantage of all of that, call 888-823-PLAN and make it happen. That's the way. I'm Ron Stutz along with Logan Sadler. Logan, it's been fun, as always, doing this show.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Everyone stopping by and listening. And Ron, also enjoy your time. And like you said, I'm already looking forward to next week.
Join us again next time for the next edition of the Financial Beat. The beat will go on with Logan Sadler at Regary Financial.
Regary Financial and Insurance Services, Inc. and BD Financial Group, Inc. are separate and independent entities. The information provided in this presentation is presented for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute financial, investment, tax, or legal advice, nor does it constitute an offer or solicitation to buy or sell any securities.